Giants to cover +9 after I buy a 1.5, and the over after I buy a 1.5. One more time, those are the early line bets. If you want to get our bets a day before the kickoff of these games, go to buttfumblesports.com, sign up for the free newsletter. In that newsletter, you'll not just get the game picks, total plays, and player prop bets that I like, but also you'll get all of my game notes and the gambling trends. So whether you agree with my pick or don't, you'll know what goes into it, and that way you can make a smart, educated decision for yourself. Appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure you're following Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Butt Fumble Sports. The next game we're going to get into is the first game on Sunday, which kicks off at 3 p.m. between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. This one's going to be on CBS. This is the highly anticipated matchup of two teams we thought we were going to see on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago. Obviously, the Damar Hamlin injury changed all of that, but this is a much anticipated game between some superstar quarterbacks, really talented teams, and they're in each other's way if they want to get to the AFC Championship game. Where I see it, the Bills are a 5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 50.5 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and break it down. The underdog is 7-2 against the spread in the last 9 meetings between the Bengals and the Bills. The Bengals are 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 games in January, while the Bills are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 home games. As for total, the over is 5-1 in the Bills' last 6 home games, and the over is 7-3 in the last 10 meetings between the Bengals and the Bills. Adam, we start with you. Bengals, Bills, Burrow versus Allen. Which team emerges from this mega matchup?
So this line opened at 450, went up to 4.5, and now you mentioned why at 550.5. So just a slight move on the over-under, and up a point since open to Buffalo. Now, Buffalo was favored by 1.5, or some places 2 at Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, the game that was obviously canceled for Hamlin. So this line doesn't make isn't too crazy for them to be, 3 points at home, tacking on to that 1.5, 2, and you're sitting at 5 here for Buffalo. One note, 30 degrees, 15-mile-an-hour winds, and there is some snow expected for this game, but it is 1 inch or less, so it's not going to be anything like we saw with Miami a couple weeks ago. Cincinnati, tough game at home, beat Baltimore, which, man, Baltimore had them on the ropes. I mean, they were on the 1-yard line going in, and why J.K. Dobbins was not in there, and they chose Huntley instead, but that turned the game around with Cincinnati causing that fumble and taking it back 98 yards for a touchdown. But that was a hard-fought game, division game. I like Baltimore in that game. A lot of points to be given for Cincinnati. Burrow did throw for 209 in the touchdown, which is a little bit less of production than what we normally see. But the big concern for me is the offensive line of the Cincinnati team. Kappa and Williams are both questionable for the game, and Burrow was sacked 4 times. And 209 through the air is a little bit lower than we like to see from Joe Burrow. So that is a concern for me. As far as Buffalo, again, at home did not look good against Miami. Miami gave them all they can handle. And to be honestly, McDaniel's, clock management there, especially on the 4th and inches, they had to take a delay a game. And the number of drop passes Miami had in that game. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to Lope, but man, Miami, all intents and purposes, cleaned up the clock management and caught a few of those passes, especially Waddle. I think Miami could have won that football game. So, two teams coming in this matchup, whether they were looking past their opponents or not, they did not look good this past weekend. Allen did throw for 352 and 3 touchdowns, but did have 2 interceptions. But the big thing there, like I mentioned with Burrow, he was sacked 7 times in that football game. That is a lot. Man, that's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. Diggs and Gabriel, though, big plays. Both had over 100 yards receiving. This Buffalo defense at time has shown that they can give up points as well. Cincinnati's defense is the same. They're allowing 5.4 yards per play. That's 17th in the league, Cincinnati's defense. So that also is a concern for me. But I do like Buffalo's big play offense. I think they can score. Obviously we've seen them score really quickly. Cincinnati does have Boyd and Higgins and Chase. They also can score quickly here too. So this game I'm kind of back and forth on. 5 just seems like an accurate number compared to what they were favored early in Cincinnati. But this line to me says Vegas believes in Buffalo, because right now, looking at the live line, 72% of the money right now is on Cincinnati. And that's not a surprise to me because Burrow and Cincinnati have been covering machines. So why is Vegas setting this line at 4, 4.5, and up to 5? Right? That's a little questionable to me. So I almost want to lean Buffalo in this game and fade the public on here, just thinking that either Vegas knows something we don't, or they're very confident that Buffalo's going to get the job done in this game, being a 72% clip on Cincinnati. The over, obviously, like I mentioned before, the public is hammering the overs in this game. 79% of the money is on the over. So right now with the offensive line issues with Cincinnati, but like I mentioned, Allen got sacked 7 times in that game. I'm kind of back and forth on what I want to do here. I might just play Buffalo to fade the public for no other reason. But the one line I am looking at in this game is I do like Cincinnati's total team over 21.5. I think this game would lean to the over if it gets there, and I could certainly see Cincinnati scoring 24 points in this game. So right now, I'm going to sit tight on the spread, but I will play Cincinnati's team total over 21.5.
It's a great take from you, Adam, and I feel the same way in that I feel like Vegas is setting us up a little bit with that 5 point spread because they're making it too favorable. If this had been set at 4, 3.5, I think we would all feel a different way about it. But because they're setting it at 5, I feel like they're trying to invite you to take the Bengals. And I'll just say this before we get to Lope's analysis. That offensive line of the Bengals is beaten up. They are not healthy. There's a lot of questions there. And what started the downfall of Joe Burrow, not last year, but 2 years ago, it was a poor offensive line. So when the Bengals don't have good offensive line play, Joe Burrow isn't the superstar we saw him be in playoffs past. So anyways, Lope, with that said, what's your take on this game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills?
I like the Bills to win the game because of, like you said, I think the offensive line is hurt for Cincy, and they're also not able to run the ball. So the Bills will be able to sit back and wait. But I'm thinking that it's going to be a little closer. I got it as maybe a field goal game. So I like Cincy +5. And then 8 of the Bengals' last 9 postseason games have gone under. So I'm leaning towards the under, but I'm not willing to play money on it yet. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a big matchup. And as Adam said, the Bills have a little bit to clean up themselves, particularly Josh Allen making a little bit better decisions and not letting teams hang around and really being able to finish off, and the Bills being able to run the ball really to help Josh Allen. So that's things I'm looking for. I think the Bills ultimately will win, but I think it's a lot closer than 5 points.
So a couple things stand out to me. The first being the weather report. Adam brought it up. There is supposed to be some weather, and a website that I go to check weather reports, not just for kickoff, but through each quarter of the game, is NFLweather.com. And when I go and check the weather for Bengals and Bills, the thing it says is dangerously windy and overcast with snow coming in the third and fourth quarter. Dangerously windy. Okay. Well, I've seen in Buffalo what dangerously windy looks like. It was that Patriots game in 2021, and there was no passing. So there's a part of me that wants to sit tight on this game. I know this is an early line betting show, and I will go through my pick, but there is definitely a part of me that wants to see how the weather report shakes out over the next few days. If we get a better sense, if you're going to be able to throw the ball in Buffalo on Sunday, that's obviously going to determine the over-under and could determine the spread as well. Now, if the conditions aren't as crazy and as volatile as they could potentially be, I feel like this is a trap game. The Bills on the money line is an easy play for me. I think Damar Hamlin might show up for this game. I think that would be the bookend of that event in some ways, in that his injury happened when they went to Cincinnati. Now he's coming out leading the team, something like that, against the Cincinnati Bengals, but at home in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. That's a made-for-TV moment. If that happens, the Bills will be emotionally charged. I think we already saw this team knows how to come out early and punch their opponent in the mouth. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that to the Bengals. And I don't think the Bengals have the ability to come back like we would have expected if this offensive line were healthy. I like the Bengals defense. I was really impressed from what I saw from them last week. It was the Bengals defense that really won them that game, but they won't be able to do that against Josh Allen. And I actually think we saw the worst of the Bills in some ways against the Dolphins, and they still put up over 30 points. So if that's how as poorly as the Bills are going to play, I feel very confident about them on the money line. I will say I'm going to take Cincinnati to cover +6.5 after I buy a 1.5 for now. I want to see how that public money goes. If at some point I can get the Bills at a good spread, I will absolutely take that. For now, the early line betting play on the spread for me is the Bengals to cover after I buy that 1.5, in part because of how this offense, how Joe Burrow has played in the playoffs in January, he's been consistently covering. So I have to rely on the trends that I've seen, unless either the weather or some kind of injury or line movement changes my opinion. But one more time, the Butt Fumble Sports early betting line pick for Bengals and Bills is Buffalo on the money line, Cincinnati to cover plus 6.5. And I am considering the over, not touching that right now. Want to wait, get the weather report, understand if those dangerous winds are going to play a factor. So not touching the spread, the over under right now, but I am considering the over if the weather isn't going to play a factor. For all of those joining us, make sure you follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and go to our website, buttfumblesports.com. You can sign up for a free newsletter that will provide all of my picks all in one consolidated newsletter that comes out on Friday morning. That's the game pick, total play, player prop bets, everything you need, as well as gambling trends and game notes, so you can make the decision for yourself whether you want to tail my pick, fade my pick. Entirely up to you, but you'll be provided all of that information. We want to provide you that service for free in that consolidated newsletter. And while you're there, check out some of our shirts. A hurdling Josh Allen, Mr. Irrelevant, California Love from Debo Samuel, Jones on Jones Crime, the Butt Punt. You'll want to check out these shirts. ButtFumbleSports.com. Everything the real sports fan needs.